Okay, good afternoon, guys. This is Shivam Bhardwaj. My co-presenter is Vinay, and my team is Ashwat, Dhruv, and Chetan. We are from NYU and different colleges, and today will be presenting innovative Mars mission using vertical farming. So even after reading everything technical about this presentation, I was still confused how to start the presentation. I was very worried, and in car I actually realized that we should actually start it with the real motive why I am doing this. So it might be a jargon, but it's very necessary why I'm presenting it today. So 3 months ago, I got a mail that I'm accepted to NYU. So I talked to the seniors immediately and contacted him that what are the possibilities of the projects and everything at NYU. So he told me that we are currently working on a Mars mission. I was like, oh my God, this is great. So what exactly is your mission? Then I got to know that they are actually planning a mission from scratch till the return of astronauts. So what our mission is. So motivation. It is a time that we have to realize that Earth is not safe anymore. Even though it might be today, but at any moment there can be asteroids. Global warming is increasing and so many other aspects in which we have to discover what are the other possibilities of survival, except for our good planet. So then we got to know that the nearest planet, except for Venus, we have Mars for colonization. Why? Because almost the same gravity. There is an atmosphere which can be revamped. There is pressure which also can be adjusted, etc., and different other parameters that can be taken care of so that we have a proper colonization. So in today's presentation, we are basically talking about 6 of the USPs in our particular mission that are what rocket we are using, what shuttle we are using, what is the trajectory of our mission, why vertical farming and how we are going to do this in space as well as to survival of the astronauts on the Mars. And next is entry, descent, and landing. Last time it was Curiosity which landed. We humans are not like woodpeckers. Curiosity mission has so many vibrations in it that if human was there in that particular spacecraft, it would have banged his head on the spacecraft, or even every possible security measure would have been fatal for him. So what are the different things in our particular entry descent launch? Also the last thing, that what after reaching Mars. So I'll be starting with the Hoffman transfer. Now we particularly don't have that enough thruster powers even after Falcon that we can directly go to Mars. So we are just using a mathematical equation given by Hoffman, H-O-H man. So this basically what does is, it takes around 6 months to reach Mars. We are not going directly, we are taking an elliptical path in which the orbit is increasing with size, and we are going to intercept Mars. We are going to intercept Mars like after 6 months. 1.5 years we'll be staying there until the next mission, that is coming back on Earth. So overall time duration of the mission is 900 days, that from the scratch, from the launch till the entry descent launch on our own planet. So next part is covered by Vinay, that what are the other astronomical aspects of this.
Thank you, Shivam. So as I said, we are going to have a lot of transfers, and our launching is the criteria that we will end up starting our journey. So these are the launch dates that we calculated based on the distance between Mars and the Earth. So whichever the date is feasible and whichever is sufficient enough to gain our move forward to proceed our research. So it's like you can launch on either 2017, 19, or 2022, 2024, or 2026. And it takes, travel time is almost around 212 days, approximately 7 months. So landing date respective, if we launch on 2017 December, we will land on the Mars surface by end of July 2018. So, okay, how are we going to each and every phase after launching from Earth and reaching to the Mars? Each and everything is figured here, like on 2017 December, it starts from Earth, and we launch from there. 20% of journey is completed in the starting of 2018, and 50% is at the end of, in the middle of 2018. And as we go forward, we'll land on the Mars by 2018, July 31st, if we started in 2017. For the launch, we are going to use SpaceX Falcon heavy spacecraft. This is equivalent to, this size is almost equivalent to 737 jetliner, and each of these boosters have 9 engines in it, total 27 engines to boost this spacecraft, and approximately the pricing of this is $90 million. Okay, this is how the after boosters are off, after the launch and boosters are off, we'll be end up with the space capsule. This is the capsule in which our major plan is like 2 astronauts will be traveling from Earth to the Mars, and in that they will perform, they will produce their living. I mean, in order to live, they need to have some food. So they will produce it using vertical farming. Earlier, we had a concept of deep sleep mechanism to put the astronauts into a long sleep for at least 200 days. I mean, they won't sleep for 200 days continuous, but they will wake up every 30 days, and after 30 days, they will adjust to the environment again and go to the deep sleep. That was our last presentation in last convention. But major, what we saw as a drawback and why we opted vertical farming in this presentation is like, due to deep sleep mechanism, what happens is there are a lot of health issues they might be facing, and they will be inactive for a long time. So we never know what happens if people are inactive more than 30 days. Let's say there is a research, and there are few experiments going on, went earlier, that stayed for 18 days max, and they had some health effects. That's the reason we thought not to make the astronauts sleep during the whole beautiful journey towards the Mars. Instead, what we planned was like, we'll have a capsule, in this capsule itself, we will have an enhanced attachment, and that will have vertical farming inside it. So this is inspired from Dragon space capsule, but our design is little more, this is just an inspiration from the Dragon capsule. Our design is little more, and that enhanced capsule will have a vertical farming section included in this.
Hello. So basically, today I'll talk about why we are doing this vertical farming and why this is important for our particular mission. So while coming from India, I just bought spices, not vegetables, because I knew that vegetables and other stuff I'll be getting in US as well. So why this is important is that it considerably decreases the initial payload which we have to carry on our capsule. Like on earlier missions, we have to carry every food stuff, they get used, and we just throw that waste in the space. So unnecessary, we have to carry so many things. Now, this is basically the concept, bio-regenerative system. What happens is, in our ecology that on Earth, every nutrient, everything is governed by sun. That is fundamental source of energy. On this particular capsule as well, we have a considerable amount of solar energy, and we can have a complete regenerative system using plants. As you can see in the slide, that biomass is again can be reused in some form or other in the space capsule. So what is the augmentation in that particular capsule is that this part is the normal Dragon spacecraft. We have added a vertical chamber for vertical farming. So if you look at the ceiling, you cannot even imagine that we can grow plants over that, because that will fall on our head. But in space, since it's microgravity, we can have a chamber that is rotating such that the overall centrifugal force will be like 9.8 G. So we can have a farming-based area on the complete outer portion of that particular spacecraft. So why will this help? Vertical farming and space farming is done in 2 modes. First, on the spacecraft, then after landing. So on the spacecraft and after landing has completely different technologies. So what happens when we are on the spacecraft? Since we have less or no gravity, We cannot use normal soil and everything on the our system. So what we are using is a tissue-like structure which is currently being developed, and there are startups which are working on it. Even NASA is being developing them. So what we do is we just put that particular, I can demonstrate you with the help of, these are simply paper towels. What they do is, we can spread seeds on this. The roots will automatically, this is nature. The roots will always go towards the gravity, and the shoots will always come out. To reduce the overall water usage, the overall water usage, minerals usage, and everything, what we do is we spray the minerals, waters, and other environment onto this plant system. So what happens is that we have to take our Earth to Mars. So what are the parameters that are exclusive to Earth? That is, everything can be regenerated on Earth, from minerals, from water, to everything. So how we are doing this? Firstly, we have to talk about what are the parameters for selection of those plants, specifically on space farming. The fundamental parameter is that it should be small, because we are on a very tight space restriction. Next is high growth rate. We cannot afford a plant that like bamboo tree, which takes at least 5 years to grow. It has to grow like in a month or so. Next thing is excellent germination. We cannot, the complete mission is zero error mission. We cannot have even a single or 2 seeds wasted, which we are carrying there. Next is that low natural microbial levels. So another good aspect of Earth is that we know that even we have gut bacteria for digestion. We are surrounded by bacteria. Even if we are in a 10 million particles clean room, then also we are having so many bacteria. Just imagine the situation in a spacecraft. If these bacteria leak, that will be devastating. So what we have to do is we have to create a separate chamber. This chamber is connected with the spacecraft, the Dragon spacecraft, and it is isolated from the main chamber, so that whenever the person is entering, whenever the astronaut is entering for growing and checking on the plants, the thing is completely sealed. So less or no bacteria are transferred into the main capsule. Next parameter we have to take a look on is that should be easily picked and eaten. What happens is, even if we are growing something in space, we cannot eat it directly. That still have microbes on it. For example, in the ISS have 2 missions for vertical farming. In the first mission, even after the astronauts were asking them to eat that thing, they were not allowed, because they were first sent to Earth and then checked for different levels of radiations, different types of nutrition, and different other things. For example, if you talk about almonds, after in every 100 almond, 1 almond is bitter from the same tree. Why? Because a slight amount of nutrients in the fundamental plant can differ considerably in the final produce. So we have to regulate all these things. Now, that particular plant not only should be edible, but as I talked about, bio-regenerative structure. So it has to be efficient in regenerating whatever the fundamental needs of a human are on the planet. So for that, currently we have these options. It is red lettuce, which is grown in ISS successfully and even eaten by the astronauts. Next, they are working on dwarf tomatoes and the other plants like this. According to a research paper, we still need 15 different type of plants for a complete diet system. Now, what are the challenges? As I've talked about, low gravity, pressure, and different challenges that are currently being covered by NASA and different societies. Is it done? Okay. So next is anti-descent launch. Now, as I talked about in this thing in the starting of the presentation, this is the completely different aspect of a human-based mission on Mars. Last time, they were just sensors and rovers on the device that was landing. But this time, we'll be having humans. So we should have a certain mechanism which makes sure that there is no to and from, that much to and fro motion, so that it is just inconvenient for the astronauts and not lethal. So The first step will be that guided entry once we are into the orbital. Let's skip this. Once we are orbital, it takes around 10 minutes to reach exactly the atmosphere of that particular spacecraft, Mars. So next is EDL phase, then atmospheric entry. Then after heating and deceleration, last time we used a separate trolley mechanism in Curiosity rover. This time we are omitting that because in Curiosity rover, everything was governed by sensors, and it was a gap of 7 minutes multiplied by 2 that we got a signal from. So everything was autonomous. Now we have humans to control everything. So we can omit so many other sensors to have this guided EDL phase. And last, when we touch down, the scene entirely changes. We were having a proper farming mechanism to develop things in space, but right now we're in a gravity of 1/3 of Earth. So we have a different story here.
Thank you. So, as he said, complete scenario of vertical farming changes when we compare. If vertical farming is done in space, that's a different aspect. It has no gravity at all to support the plant shoot system or root system. But when it comes to when we land on the Mars, and we have at least, not like zero gravity on the space, we have at least 1/3 gravity when compared to Earth. And so on the Mars, vertical farming will have a lot of different challenges, and these are the details that we are going to incorporate in our paper as well. And what kind of how safe is to consume that produce that they had on Mars, and how are we going to limit our payload, and what are different advantages when compared to carrying our own food to the Mars or sustaining there, or using or producing plants using vertical farming in there. So we will have a different environment setup on the Mars surface to have vertical farming implemented. We'll have food production there, and these plants that we grow there helps to generate oxygen, and they are useful to grow herbs just in case some sort of any infection or something happens to the astronauts. They can use those herbs to heal themselves, and we can use the recycled waste to provide nutrients or provide fertilizers to the plants on the Mars surface. So these are the different components that used in vertical farming. Instead of using sunlight, because sunlight, while going towards the Mars, we'll have during the space voyage there is no sunlight. We will be using vertical farming with the help of LED lights. In the same way, though we have sunlight on Mars, we cannot use those sunlight to generate photosynthesis on those plants, because due to radiation. So instead we'll use that solar energy, and we will generate we'll use that solar energy to generate energy for the LED system, and this LED system gives required photosynthesis process for plant growth. This is how a setup looks like. As he demonstrated, we don't need a soil there, because Mars soil is not useful to grow plants. So we are going to use semi-permeable membranes and root, because there is a gravity system on the Mars. So we'll have roots going down like otherwise in the space. Because of some system, and if we can provide good amount of LED light towards the shoot, it grows towards the top, and root goes towards the down. That gives a production in the required rate. So these are the different dimensions of a single plant or a single chamber that we use for vertical farming. And when compared to space, vertical farming on the Mars will have a different microbiology on the Mars surface is completely different. And as I mentioned about the LED lights, these are the different specifications for that, and they are preserved in -80 degrees Celsius. What kind of plants? As he mentioned, we can use multiple we can use different kinds of plants to grow there, like beans or tomatoes or lettuce, cabbage, strawberries. And these are at least it takes around 18 days. Sometimes it might take around 25 days to harvest and get the first produce. And this, apart from vertical farming, apart from produce we get from vertical farming, we can have this acts as a horticulture therapy for the astronauts. That gives a mind relief to the astronauts, and they can see another growth right in front of them, and they can have a feel, and that will keep the astronauts very active and stressless. So this is how the chamber or a setup of vertical farming looks like. And as there will be some germs that are involved, even though we produce it in a very sophisticated environment. So we can use different kinds of sensors to guide, and we can use earn water sensors to give certain amount of water, and we can reduce. We can use different sensors to prevent different germs on the plants, and we can use Prosan wipes. Those are used by NASA and produced a few years ago. We can use that to wipe off the food that we produce there, and that will be safe to astronauts to eat. So this is how we can cycle through the process of vertical farming on the Mars. As I said, as you saw the launch dates and Falcon launch from Earth, we are going to send 2 Falcon spacecrafts, and one provides only vertical farming setup, and astronauts will be in there, and another spacecraft is going to have all the required, let's say after they go there, they might need mobility to move from one place to another. They can generate fuel from Mars environment, and they can set up a chamber like this, and these kind of setup are carried in another Falcon spacecraft. This is the vehicle I'm talking about, just in case if they want to move from one place to another or investigate different soils on Mars. After the launch date, these are the dates that they can use to return to the Earth. That's all. Thank you.
So for the bioregenerative life support system, I'm assuming you're using composting microbes to convert the waste into fertilizer.
Yes.
And then you would be sterilizing that before using that as a hydroponic solution for the plants?
Yes.
So my question is, like in organic gardening on Earth, sometimes people would take that fertilizer solution that's unsterilized and they'd spray it on the surface of the plants, creating like a probiotic sort of solution that excludes pathogens. Is there a reason you guys would not want to do that?
See, well, it depends on how the exact approach is yet to be studied. Reason being because none of the approach is completely perfect till now. If right now we are just working on what other plants we can produce, not like how we can completely eliminate the bacteria.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think that the sterility of the plants might affect the bioavailability of the nutrients once they reach your
Exactly,
stomach?
they do. There are so many factors that makes the plant unfit for eating. Even if they taste good, they might not have the proper nutrition, or they might even be poisonous. So we have to study a lot about the exact things, like exact outcome of those particular plants. And we have to wait like 6 months for every produce. So that is taking a lot of time.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, 2 things. This is built around the Dragon spacecraft, which has a crew of 2 or something. So, how dependent is it on 2 people doing a 200-day mission outbound, and then a year and a half on the surface, and then a 200-day mission inbound? 2 people doing that, and then a second separate thing. If they're growing all this on the way there, and then they're going to try to atmospherically decelerate it, and then have it, a garden ready to go and plop in place and everything, that seems like a lot of logistical problems for re-entry or for Martian entry. would it not make sense to kind of send a seed packet or all the stuff and then get it there and then go into vertical farming, or am I totally missing the point?
The fundamental difference in this particular mission is that we are not just going there. We are going to stay for some time, and there is a re-entry as well to Earth. So we are sending 2 aircraft simultaneously. One is just for the carrying people and the space farming. Second one is carrying the thrusters that will make which can make the astronauts come back from Mars, as well as equipments for the farming on Mars. So we are having 2 separate aircrafts for this particular mission.
If you decided to just stay there rather than come back and save all that fuel and boosters for coming back, could this system be long-term sustainable and self-seeding and stuff?
See, system can be sustainable, but our human bodies are not. What happens is in space, our bone density is decreased considerably. Like in 6 months or something, we'll be aging like 70 years or 80. So we cannot stay there for long unless we figure out a way to keep on prolong our bone density and other parameters. Yes, it will be sustainable. This is like a remission. 2 people will go there, set up something, then again we will be having a mission after next 1 month or 2. This is the way we are going to colonize that particular area. It's not like a particular person can just stay there forever, because that is not, human bodies are made up for that yet.
It's also like bringing the 2 humans back to the Earth. We have to go through a lot of medical procedures. What really happened to them in Mars, and we have to figure out some solutions so that we can keep on sending people, so that we can colonize in short time.
The reason for using Falcon Heavy was this only, because Falcon Heavy we have reusable boosters. So when the Falcon Heavy gets out of the atmosphere of Earth, the boosters land back to the Earth. So we have reusability of boosters, so that it saves costs, so that we can have multiple missions to Mars. Because one mission cannot just be suffice to. From
New York to California, we came into A320. That is a cost of 90 million. Just imagine. And this whole mission is also having the cost of that. So we want to have sustainable things so that people can go there and return back. Not completely. Right now, we are not working on their prolongity of their particular stay. We just wanted a mission that can be reused again and again.
Last question?
Yeah.